I think it's very important that the Met show exactly what they've done in terms of their investigations. Have they contacted Andrew? He's a great hoarder. He's got lots of material. Have his lawyers been approached? And of course, there are other victims who have come forward. I mean, many people presented evidence, including Virginia Giuffre, over the years. I think we really need to see a sense of this being looked at properly to avoid the conclusion that this is just another classic British cover-up. There's no appetite, it seems, in the British establishment to actually hold Andrew to account. And I think that's very worrying. The royal family clearly do not want him to be in the dock. Shades of the Paul Burrell trial and how it was shut down. I think what's also worrying is stories that there's been some cozy arrangement to allow Andrew to go and live in Bahrain outside the reach of the law. I really do feel that he should face justice. I mean, people are being sent to prison for tweets, and there's plenty of evidence of his financial and sexual misdemeanor. Uh, and I think, it is time now for the royal family to get a grip on this situation, for the police and the legal authorities to actually accept that even if he's a member of the royal family, he has to face justice in the way, for example, the son of the crown princess of Norway is. I used to think that Andrew might see the inside of courtroom. I'm not so sure now. I think everyone is determined that he doesn't, that if charges are leveled at him, he will, like King Juan Carlos of Spain, disappear to the Middle East. I didn't think there's an extradition treaty between Bahrain and and London, for example. So I don't think he will face justice. And I think, that is an outrage really for the victims and for the rule of law. I mean, clearly this is a matter for legal enforcement, and the police and the palace can't interfere. But I think what worries me is the palace are interfering, which is why the legal authorities and the police are doing nothing. So I think a great deal of transparency there would be helpful to actually know, perhaps through parliamentary questions, actually what communication is going on between the palace and law enforcement. I think it's too late for Andrew to recover his reputation. I don't think he's particularly concerned about it. I think he still feels he's been hard done by, and he's had plenty of opportunities over the years to show some contrition, to try and redeem himself through good works, and he's chosen not to do so. I think this is a problem of the palace's own making. They should have dealt with this years ago. They knew about it. I understand they had a copy of Jeffrey's book even before she died. And they knew what was coming up. And it's the same old story. Too little, too late. Hope the problem goes away. A bit of window dressing, and the peasants will be satisfied. I think this is a problem for the whole royal family. Clearly, Charles inherited the problem from his mother. I think he was aware of it. I mean, he was one who warned against Andrew being given the trade envoy job in the first place because he knew what would happen. But the fact is that Andrew has been enabled and protected by a whole succession of diplomats, civil servants, politicians, courtiers, and others. And even at the Duchess of Kent's funeral, he was given a police escort even though he's not a working royal. So the system is there. I talked to a member of the royal household recently, and it seems that both Andrew and Sarah Ferguson are still holding meetings at Buckingham Palace, still meeting business contacts, still taking their washing in to be done. And so we're getting one version for the public and actually a different reality. I think the real damage that Andrew will feel is the loss of his status. Status was his whole sense of identity. He described himself first as a prince, then as a naval officer, then as a husband. And I think losing the garter, losing the fact he can call himself a vice admiral, that he can go on the balcony at Buckingham Palace, those things that really count for him because that's what's shaped his whole life. Losing his reputation, having fractured family relationships seem to be less important. But that's gone, I don't think, for all of them. Of course, there are now wider questions about royal accountability and privilege, which is what worries them. And so, if they dealt with this problem much earlier, we wouldn't have this sort of snowballing of concern about the way the royals operate. I think William realizes this. I think he wants the stables clean before he inherits. And it's really up to Charles to bite the bullet. And to see that, for example, I think that only those in direct line of succession have titles, that there's a royal register. So the people like Beatrice and Eugenie can't go sworn off to the Middle East and do business there, that there is far more parliamentary scrutiny, and we have Royal Wales unsealed. So we know how the money is passed on from generation to generation. Well, we know that the eviction from Royal Lodge is not going as smoothly as everyone was saying, that he can stay there till October. And I suspect he will dig his heels in as long as he can. It's a big place to leave. But I think also he doesn't want to leave. This is all about an arrangement. He's been paid to leave. I'm not sure. He's going to a house which is, should we say, a shoebox. And he's going to continue to have stuff. Nothing much is changing in his life, except he's being paid quite a lot of money to change the optics. Well, everyone is looking to see what happens at Christmas and who goes where. Andrew, I think, will feel a little cheesed off, that like last year, that he's not allowed to join everyone. He lacks a complete sense of self-awareness. You would think he would want to keep his distance, seen the reaction he got at the Duchess of Kent's funeral. There was, of course, a long period where Sarah Ferguson spent Christmas Day at Wood Farm, often with her own family members, and then the Queen would come down afterwards and see her, and she would join activities other parts of the festive season. So they're not as a family. It's not a situation they haven't known before. And of course, there are plenty of options for Andrew. I mean, he can have a Ria's party at Royal Lodge with his wife, with his friends, so with his children. I mean, and that, of course, is the big question. Where will Beatrice and Eugenie go? Will they side with the royal family, which is where their bread's buttered? Will they show some family loyalty given, of course, the strained relations, particularly with their father? Or will they, as I suspect, basically kind of cut some themselves loose and just do something with their in-laws or their own families quite separately? That would be the sensible thing. Lie low, hope, the problem goes, and then perhaps go quietly to other royal events later in the year. I think the big concern must be what is going to happen to Sarah Ferguson. She's been used to being subsidized and supported by the royal family for years. She's a woman who has a very extravagant standard of living and does not want to change that. I think a lot of the people who lent her money in the past are no longer going to do that. The interesting question is, what's happened to the £4 million from the Belgrave sale of the house recently? But I think the feeling in the royal family is that she needs to still be kept close to avoid her selling family secrets. And of course, she's constantly threatened to do this over the years at the time of her divorce, and more recently. Of course, this is all part of her negotiating tactics, which I think are pretty short term, because, of course, the royal family can put pressure on the Yorks through the daughters. They can take away the titles. They can make life very difficult for them. They can exclude them from the family. And I think that's the pressure that I think will prevent the Yorks from doing anything too dramatic. That doesn't mean that there won't be stories leaked to the press, just a little shots across people's bows. My own advice to Biters and Eugene is they should concentrate on their careers and their families and their charitable activities. I think they should no longer get involved with supporting Saudi banks and various other things that they're doing. Their jobs, which rely on client relations, which come from, frankly, their status, I think, it's going to be difficult for them. They, too, have a very high standard of living, which has been sustained by monetizing their position in the royal family. Uh, but I think if they want to have a long-term future within the family, then I think they will have to stop some things that they're doing. They've refused to allow them to be audited. Uh, if there was a royal register, at least some of the stuff could be registered, so we know what they were doing. But I do think there are various skeletons in those cupboards that will emerge in the course of 2026. I think what was very interesting is the losing letters patent.